Does the gentleman from New York seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Clause 2A1 of Rule 9, I rise to give notice of my intention to raise a question of the privileges of the House. The form of the resolution is as follows. H-Res 878, submitted by Mr. Guest, providing for the expulsion of Representative George Santos from the United States House of Representatives. Whereas Representative George Santos is a member of the United States House of Representatives. Whereas soon after his election in November of 2022, Representative Santos's background came under public scrutiny. Whereas on February 28, 2023, the Committee on Ethics of the House unanimously voted to impanel an investigative subcommittee, hereinafter in this resolution referred to as the ISC, to review whether Representative Santos may have engaged in unlawful activity with respect to his 2022 congressional campaign, failed to properly disclose required information on statements filed with the House, violated federal conflict of interest laws in connection with his role in a firm providing fiduciary services, and engaged in sexual misconduct towards an individual seeking employment in his congressional office. Whereas the ISC met 9 times, and over the course of the investigation, authorized 37 subpoenas and 43 voluntary requests for information, RFIs, leading to its receipt of over 172,000 pages of documents, contacted or interviewed over 40 witnesses, and reviewed materials received from the Office of Congressional Ethics and relevant court records. Whereas the ISC determined in its investigation that there was substantial evidence of violations of federal law, the rules of the House, and other applicable standards related to many of the allegations charged in the indictment, and substantial evidence of additional unlawful and unethical conduct not charged in the indictment. Whereas these additional violations relate to falsely reported loans reportedly received by his 2020 campaign and Leadership Political Action Committee, GADS PAC, improper loan repayments to himself, systemic reporting errors in his 2020 and 2022 campaigns, Federal Election Commission filings, and substantial evidence that campaign funds were converted to personal use. Whereas the ISC also identified additional errors and omissions in his 2020 and 2022 financial disclosure statements, as well as violations of federal law and the rules of the House related to his unfiled 2021 and 2023 financial disclosure statements, which were not charged in the indictment. Whereas the ISC also found that Representative Santos failed to meet his duty of candor with respect to the ISC's investigation, and instead presented the ISC with misrepresentations and delay tactics. Whereas on May 10, 2023, Representative Santos was charged in federal court in the Eastern District of New York with wire fraud in connection with a fraudulent political contribution scheme, unlawful monetary transactions in connection with the wire fraud allegations, theft of public money in connection with his alleged receipt of unemployment benefits, fraudulent application for and receipt of unemployment benefits, and false statements in connection with his 2020 and 2022 House of Representatives financial disclosure statements. Whereas Nancy Marks, who served as treasurer to Representative Santos's campaign, pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit wire fraud, falsifying records, and identity theft in connection with the Santos campaign. Whereas a superseding indictment was filed on October 10, 2023, charging Representative Santos with additional violations related to his 2022 campaign, including allegations of falsifying Federal Election Commission reports in connection with a $500,000 personal loan that was never made, falsifying the names of contributors to his campaign, engaging in aggravated identity theft and access device fraud, and enriching himself through a fraudulent contribution scheme. Whereas Sam Mealy, who served as a fundraiser to Representative Santos's campaign, pleaded guilty to a federal wire fraud charge after impersonating a senior congressional aide for the purposes of soliciting funds. Whereas the ISC that was established to review the allegations against Representative Santos adopted a report of its findings and submitted the report to the full committee. Whereas the Committee on Ethics of the House unanimously voted to adopt the ISC report based on the investigation, providing substantial evidence that Representative Santos, 1, knowingly caused his campaign committee to file false or incomplete reports with the Federal Election Commission, used campaign funds for personal purposes, engaged in fraudulent conduct in connection with Redstone Strategies, LLC, and engaged in knowing and willful violations of the Ethics in Government Act as it relates to his financial disclosure statements filed with the House. 2, was a knowing and active participant in the wrongdoing, and 3, was given an opportunity pursuant to Committee Rule 17B to submit a signed written statement responding to the allegations raised in a complaint filed by his fellow members but did not do so. Whereas the ISC1 requested that Representative Santos provide all documents and information responsive to his request for information, but he did not do so. 2, asked Representative Santos to voluntarily testify, but he did not do so. And 3, provided Representative Santos the opportunity pursuant to Committee Rule 19B3 to provide a statement under oath, but he did not do so. Whereas a member of the House of Representatives, Representative Santos must be held accountable to the highest standards of conduct in order to safeguard the public's faith in this institution. Whereas the Constitution of the United States of America charges the House with policing the behavior of its own members, and the House should take action against Representative Santos commensurate with his violations of federal law and the rules of the House. And whereas, given his egregious violations, Representative George Santos is not fit to serve as a member of the United States House of Representatives. Now, therefore, be it resolved that pursuant to Article 1, Section 5, Clause 2 of the Constitution of the United States of America, Representative George Santos be and hereby is expelled from the United States House of Representatives.
Under Rule 9, a resolution offered from the floor by a member other than the majority leader or the minority leader as a question of the privileges of the House has immediate precedence only at a time designated by the chair within 2 legislative days after the resolution is properly noticed. Pending that designation, the form of the resolution noticed by the gentleman from New York will appear in the record at this point. The chair will not at this point determine whether the resolution constitutes a question of privilege. That determination will be made at a time designated for consideration of the resolution.